Sorry, my mouth. Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Today I'm with Heather Alice Shea. Now, I met you through my good friend April. I will not say her last name because I always mess it up. But she's amazing. You can even say her last name if you want. I always mess it up. But there we
Pertwee.
go. There we go. I got that little French thing there. But she said that we were like each other. We were one
Mhm.
on the same in a lot of things. So tell people who you are, who you help, and what you do. Or we could even just talk about what we were talking about before, which was how TV and shows actually are more real life than the garbage they throw at us. But you can take it either way you want.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. And I love the your overarching theme for this show, which is creating a life that you really love, that is emblematic of our truest virtues and values. And I feel the same way about what I do. So I love to refer to myself as a recovering psychotherapist. I came from the world of mental health. When I was 28 years old, I read the book The Alchemist, and I closed that book and I thought to myself, if I could spend the rest of my life helping people heal in the direction of becoming who they truly are versus who the world told them to be, then that's my treasure. So my thought to do that was just to become a counselor, and I've always loved listening to what I call the back end of people's lives. It's all of the stuff that isn't on the highlight reel or things that you're going to mention in polite conversation. So I embarked on, coaching and becoming a therapist. In 2014, I started my own private coaching company. I bought a $99 IKEA chair and I took out an ad on Psych Today and just in the biggest trust fall with God and the universe. I thought, oh, I'll just start a business and people will come to me. And, it's been the wildest adventure. But my really the thing that I love the most in being a coach and a therapist is helping people tap into their intuition. My business revolves around that. So I run Atmana Academy, which is a life coach training company specifically for intuitive coaches. And what makes our program and our coaches different is I truly believe that as we listen to the voice within, whether we call that the Holy Spirit or our soul, or, science would say tapping into the quantum field, however it is we want to go there or get there, I think the more that we have human beings that are connected to that inner wisdom, that inner intelligence, I actually think that's how we are going to heal, fix, change, the world, right? That's kind of the path. It has to be an inner revolution from the bottom up, not an
Hmm.
external revolution from the top down, like our world is trying to do today. So, yeah, I just fell in love with helping people and my own life path, my own journey. I have a thousand crazy stories, of course, but I really love listening to my own inner voice as I connect to people. You were mentioning, Joe, that you're a salesperson and you love to have free form conversations. I think it's because you're listening within to yourself while you're engaged. And so that's what I spend my time doing, is teaching people how to hear that voice and to
I
give
love
it to
that.
the world. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think your idea is way better than what most people try to do. So most people get this thought in their head and they try and push it on someone, but you actually help guide their inner voice, is what I'm hearing you saying.
Mhm.
You help them figure, okay, what is not that there isn't absolute truth. There are some things like gravity is an absolute truth, but you
Yeah.
help them understand how to navigate and you don't put the labels of, oh, if you don't do it this way, you're wrong. So I love that. Were you always the person that liked to help people? Has that always just been since a young kid? Like you wanted to be the nurse, the mom, I don't know, the teacher,
Yeah.
whatever the helping person is.
Yes. So in so many ways, I could say yes to that. When I was growing up, I grew up in a really big family, and I grew up in a very poor family in the poverty-stricken South. It was 5 miles in on dirt roads before you could get to my home. I grew up on a farm. I grew up milking cows and chasing bunnies and chickens and wrangling pigs. Yes, we did have pig wrestling contests on the weekends. It was so much fun. And pigs are amazing. But anyway, I grew up very, very poor in a large family, and I had three younger siblings, and my entire family story could be a book, but a lot of mental illness in my family. So I was really kind of the first responsible kid, that my mother and my father relied on. So from a very young age, I started helping with my siblings, and just it really taught me to have a lot of empathy and how to put others first and realize that I'm always going to be taken care of while I'm doing the right thing and helping, other people. When I was in elementary school, this is such a strange memory, but this was my first recollection of realizing that there was something about me that was different, that I didn't know what it was, but that I carried. Now, what I know is it's an energy, it's the calling and purpose that God has put over my life. But I would stand every day in elementary school, I think it was in the third grade, but it happened for years. We'd line up to go to the lunchroom, and kids, the girls in my class would flock around me, and they would all start dibbing on who would sit to my right, who would sit to my left, and who would get to sit in front of me. And I thought it was so strange. They'd always ask me, who gets to sit to your left? And I would never say. I would say, I want to sit with everybody at lunch. We should all have a seat. And I would try to help them see that every seat is special, but of course they'd fight for the seat. And I remember having this memory of thinking to myself in that moment, the reason why they want to sit by me is because I'm nice to everybody.
Mhm.
I figured out that it was because I wouldn't play favorites. It was because I wanted everybody to have a seat. So I think from even those earliest experiences of getting to see that one person really can change a life.
Mhm.
One person really can shift a room, and that we should never think to ourselves, "Oh, who am I? Who am I to do that?" That's an insane statement. So, those are my earliest memories. But when I really stepped into my profession, that's when I really started to see kind of, wow, that's when I opened up to sort of the complexity of change and where people get stuck in belief and dogma, and they get trapped in horrible traumas and terrible ideas and belief systems and thoughts and emotions they do not know how to break free from.
Mhm.
So, that really is sort of the challenging piece of this, is how do we create systems and structures and processes that allow people to go through that process while still letting them be the one in charge. It has to be their idea. It has to be their process. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's been fun.
No, I love that. And you hit on something that, like, I would say probably the past 6 to 10 years I've been personally going through, which is challenging my beliefs. Why do I believe something? Did I
Yeah.
just inherit this, or is it truly mine? And then having to look at it from, and I'm still going through this, but I'm a lot better. Having to look at it from the point of, I want to say neutral, but not as it's right or wrong, as does this actually connect with me now? Because, like,
Mhm.
I grew up poor, like you. I got the chip on my shoulder. Well, I got into sales. I was always the oddball kid. I could connect with everybody, but I wasn't connected to anybody. It was just
Mhm.
that kind of vibe where I could flow between everything, but I never really got close. And I always had these walls up. And I think, and I'm going to ask this question too. I think with men and women, it's probably different because I'm going to give ladies props here. You normally, doesn't put everyone in here, but normally are able to work through your stuff a little bit easier. I think as
Mhm.
men guard it a little bit more because of what we've been trained to do. But how do you even help people do that? Like, I've talked with a lot of different people, like my friend Brian Bogart, other people, and it's taken me, it wasn't just like a one time I sat down, oh, I'm going to challenge my beliefs. And that's it. It's been like this, almost like, and I do go a little woo here, but almost like an awakening. Like, I am a new
Sure.
person now than I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 year ago me, you wouldn't have even recognized. I'm way different. But how do you even help people start to do that? Because I know people who listen to this are probably going through the same thing of, this is what my family wants me to be. This is
Yeah,
what my church wants me to be. This is what my government wants me to be. In reality, you should be who you want to be, which
that's
is
right.
hard. And here's my other follow-up question, then I'll let you talk because I know I just threw three at you. How do you do anything for yourself? Because us givers normally are really great at giving to other people, but like my wife has to still make me buy stuff for myself because I won't
Mhm.
half the time.
Mhm. That is a fantastic question. I think I can answer that one quickly. It's first of all, I think it's something we come by honestly. When you are a person who is a natural helper, I actually think that we have less needs than your average person. There's something about that. Like, I'm good as long as for the most part, I'll take care of myself. I think my trick to that is to remember that I'm a person in the room too, to not become so fixated on helping other people that I don't consider myself. So when I remember to check in with myself, like I'm someone I'm responsible for helping as well, then it's actually quite easy. And then the overgiving piece of this is just working on boundaries. I think
Hmm.
for people in any type of profession or just even a stay-at-home mom, right? This is, the art of being human. It's to really understand what your needs are and check in with yourself to make sure that they're getting met. And the first indicators of that are resentment, fatigue, sadness, irritability. If you're like, those are key emotions that let us know our needs are not being met. So yeah, I think it's just including yourself in the room and realizing that you are responsible for taking care of yourself, like you're responsible for taking care of other people. In terms of how to challenge beliefs, there's so much I could say to this. But at the end, because we could get into we could get into right now is what a belief is. And a lot of people don't know what a belief is, how they are created, and then how they are deconstructed. And there's a lot of misunderstanding around there on what a belief is. And it's not what most people think it is. So we could talk about that, which in and of
Hmm.
itself is liberating to discover what that is. But essentially, at the root of all change, whether we're trying to change or shift an emotion, a thought, a belief system, or a behavior, which are those are the four buttons we have to push, okay, that we have control over inside ourselves, inner control to change. It's our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, and our actions. And then understanding how the human mind is structured, it is in that order. Thoughts don't create emotions. Emotions are actually the genesis of every thought you've ever thought. And neuroscience now confirms this. So I know a lot of people say thoughts create emotions. That is not true. And not even a little bit. It's
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
emotions. Yeah, yeah. And I don't want to nerd out too much on that, but that is like instantiated in what we now know through neuroscience and cognitive psychology. It just looks like thoughts create emotions because people are more aware, have easier access to their cognitive side of being than they do their affective, their emotional.
Mm. Hmm.
So, but essentially how you shift it is four things. And this is what I teach in my certification program. It's called the Sovereign Method, the Sovereign Intuitive Coaching Method. It's four steps. The root of all change, whether it's emotions, thoughts, beliefs, or behaviors, is it's find it, you got to feel it, you got to friend it, and then you free it. You have to find it, feel it, friend it, free it. That is essentially the change or the healing process in and of itself. So we first have to find the root of what it is that's really going on. And then everything that isn't felt will remain, will stay, right? The energy of emotions, which we can now measure using like reliable scientific instruments, the energy of emotion is very, very real. And unless we allow ourselves to process or to feel what is unfelt, it is going to stay in the system. And then, so it's getting in touch with what we have not given ourselves permission or we have not been allowed to feel. And all a belief is an emotion and a thought paired together. That's all it is. A belief is simply an emotion that has had a thought. There's a pairing there. So a belief is an informal conclusion that you draw that you believe to be true about yourself, others, or the world. And the difference between a thought and a belief is a belief will persist in the face of evidence to the contrary. A belief
Hmm.
will not shift. So beliefs are not thoughts. Okay.
Right.
So all a belief is someone has an emotional, there's an emotional reality that then gets paired with these thoughts and it gets reinforced and reinforced and reinforced until all of a sudden you go, boom, this is what I believe. And then we become identified with that belief.
Hmm.
Okay. So that's where you have to let yourself feel that unprocessed emotion that was the genesis of that thought to begin with, and then develop a new relationship, a new
Hmm.
identity, a new from an identity place, which is friend, to make friends with the thing that you didn't understand, that hurt you, that you insert whatever coping mechanism we had, to employ here. And then free it is renegotiating our new emotion, our new thought, our new belief, our new the behaviors that we want to exhibit from this place of integration and alignment with our higher nature, with
Hmm.
ourselves in charge. So that's the quickest way to do it that I have found that does not that a person can do with and for themselves, that we don't have to hire tons of therapists and spend tens of $1,000s at retreats and buy all these courses. And it's like, no, you actually have a version of you inside you that's waiting for you to get in touch with them so that you can just go be that person. And I found that Sovereign is the fastest way to do it, that allows the person to help themselves. It keeps them in the driver's seat versus needing to have something facilitated, or just this constant kind of, that's the thing I didn't like about therapy, is I feel like it just creates a lot of dependence despite
Mhm.
not meaning to. So yeah, that's the easiest way. Find it, feel it, friend it, free it, to shift a belief or an emotion or a thought or even a behavior.
Yeah. I love that. And I was thinking about the different ways. I think the reason people fear it is because how it worked for me, and it may have worked differently for someone else, was I just went and started doing a stillness practice. 10 minutes a day, no rules, no phone. I lived in Texas at the time. I'd go sit on this little park bench. There was this little wooded area. I'd watch a tree. I'd watch a bird for 10 minutes and didn't have any. And my friend George Bryant, who knows April as well, gave me
Okay.
this idea. So I'm going to always give credit to the people who give me the idea. And I did that it was about 5 years ago, just 10 minutes a day, did that for almost a year. And then there was other stuff of like, I think, at least with my journey, I had to get comfortable with myself and not
Yeah.
who I'm showing up for other people because I'm really good at that. I'm really good at the rewards you see behind me, I'm really good at all that for other people. But then who was I really? And I think that might be where the change started to happen because once I actually found out who I was, then I could say, well, I don't like this aspect of who I'm being now, or this belief system isn't working for me now because I actually know who I am. But I think most
Mm.
people, and I want your thoughts on this, I don't think most people actually even find out who they are. I think they just inherit what's been put on them. They were going to be the baseball player because their dad wanted them to. They're going to be the stay-at-home mom because their mom wanted them to. They were the caregiver because that's all they ever did. And in
Mhm.
reality, finding out what you want, like I used to sales coach. I still sales coach some because I'm good at it, but I'd rather help people figure out what they want to do with their life because that
Yeah.
lights me up. Not, and I'm a master at sales. Like I can teach sales like blindfolded. It's boring to me though. So I think it's just finding um what it is. I mean, but here's the thing. I've said this multiple times. It's kind of funny. Success is boring. It's doing the right processes and systems over and over with a known
Mm.
result. Most people don't succeed because they don't do the boring processes over and over.
Right.
But that's just a little tangent. Sorry. But I want your thoughts on that. Is that people first have to actually be willing to get with themselves, and I think that scares most people with all the stuff.
I 100% agree with you. I think that people, for first of all, we don't know how to do it. We truly don't know. And I saw this as a therapist. Human beings are really intelligent creatures. We do, we are striving in the direction of growth. When you study the humanistic psychologists, Carl Rogers is my favorite. He tells a story of how he went into his mother's basement and he noticed a sack of potatoes sitting underneath a windowsill. Now, this is in a very, very dark, dank basement, very cold, and it had just like the half window. And he
Mhm,
noticed that on the side of the potatoes that was facing the window, there were sprouts reaching for the light, reaching. The potato's not even planted, it doesn't even have
mhm,
soil, and yet it's reaching for the light. And he said he had this moment where he realized, my gosh, all living things strive for the light. All living things, if they have what he called the necessary and sufficient conditions, which he further outlined as being unconditional positive regard, congruence, and empathy. Basically, somebody that's cheering for them, that loves them, that is interested in their worldview, and cares to see them succeed. We need those necessary and sufficient conditions that we all strive to seek the light. I think that people simply, despite having this, what I believe to be a God-given urge, I truly believe that's the light of God within us that wants to strive for that. We're terrified of the process because we don't know how to do it. And we've been taught that to do that is scary and going to lead to something awful and going to lead to something bad. So, one, we don't know how. Two, we're scared. What if I find something that causes the people that love me, that I care about, to reject me? Or what if I hurt somebody that I love? These are the core fears.
Hmm.
So I noticed that as particularly as a therapist, when people would come in, that it's people will do it if they know the process, but then it's learning how to really accept and love themselves
Hmm.
and to learn communication skills. So, as we go through Sovereign, here's the good news. What I found when I work with people now, and, I teach my coaches how to use this method with their clients, but what I find is by the time a person learns how to go within themselves, and I like how you said, like, just to sit with yourself, that is it, man. I mean, if you can learn how to do that, you are absolutely cooking with gas. But by the time they go in and find what within them needs healing and allow themselves to feel it from a safe and empowered perspective and learn how to love that part, to friend that part, and then decide consciously from a place of alignment, right? Okay, this is how I'm going to live now as a free sovereign being. What I find is they unlock the ability to have the hard conversations, to shift it, like you're saying with sales, like you're like, I can do it, but I'm not gonna anymore. You have cultivated this ability to live this authentic life. The good news is when you do it from inside out, instead of just learning skills, like what a lot of people do, and God bless the coaching in the therapeutic industry. I'm privileged to be a part of these communities, but I think we could do better because
Hmm.
we're throwing tools at people without, and my analogy I always give is two analogies. One, holding a bunch of paintbrushes does not turn you into Picasso, and holding a hammer does not make you a general contractor. It does not make you a master builder. So what I'm interested in doing is empowering people from the identity shift. I don't want to teach you about paintbrushes or teach you about a hammer or a Phillips head.
Hmm.
Those are just the tools. Who cares? Sovereign shifts you from an identity place, from it changes who you be so that, so that who you are out in the world and the things you do come naturally. So I really believe identity precedes activity.
Hmm.
And we can teach people skills all day long, but at the end of the day, they're still fighting their own nature. And that's an awful way to be. So you're just one, I would say this all the time. I say this with my private clients and I teach my coaches this. I don't want to be one more person that you're trying to please. What you're now
Hmm.
your coach's voice is in your head trying to tell you to do this thing or that. It's just one more voice that they've internalized. So I think it's about radical self-acceptance
Hmm.
and learning how to deal with the strong triggers and activations and our own history. I mean, my own past is a very checkered past. I mean, at the age of 4, before I was even in kindergarten, I had experienced some of the worst trauma a child could ever endure, right? So I
Hmm.
say this in full knowledge of like really awful things happening. But yeah, I agree. I think it's the sitting with ourselves and learning how to accept and love ourselves and do that in a way that is safe, and then moving out into the world and making those external shifts from that internal place of alignment.
Yeah. So here comes my next question because I'm thinking through this stuff and I've had crazy trauma in my life from a young age. So I understand. And I think this is the thing. All high achievers have four things. I think I got this from Justin Breen. I can't remember for sure, but they have a high IQ or a high EQ. They normally either have ADHD, dyslexia, or something a little bit in their thinking. They have a chip on their shoulder, and there was one other one I'm not remembering right off the top, but the patterns there, like, oh, a traumatic event, like a serious
Yes.
traumatic event. And everyone I've had on my show that's actually not that you can't, there are people that have not had a traumatic event, had a great life. Ed Milet's a great story. He said his life was beautiful and he did well. But most high achievers I know have had something crazy like that happen. So
Mhm.
how do you help people like us learn to love ourselves again? Because a lot of times it's easy for me to love other people, but I know what I've been through. I know what I've endured. So I think for me, especially as a man, I'm a lot better at it now. And now I can say I love myself. I'm good. But there was a long time I didn't. I didn't love myself at all. I'm like, if people knew who I was or what I have done or what I've had happen, they wouldn't love me. So how do you help people get past that? Because I think sitting with yourself when you don't love yourself sucks.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the first thing that we can do is realize that the version of ourselves that we don't love is a false version anyway.
Hmm.
So if you're looking at yourself and you're saying, I hate me, that's not the real you. This calls into question what we believe to be true about just what it means to be human. So
Hmm.
examining our values and all that, it's fairly deep work. But I start with that premise that if you really understand a person, you might not like the things they do, but you do understand and you can value them and love them from that place. So at the very least, it's understanding that maybe who you don't like is a fault to you anyway. So we can start with that. But the gist of it is to help a person, like when I'm working with someone with the sovereign method, we go to we start saying like a question I would ask, and I've got many tricks on how to get a person to, this is our first step to find it. Well,
Hmm.
what you are you talking about that you don't like anyway? Like, what do we even mean when we say, I don't like me? Is it
Hmm.
all of you? Is it you last week? Is it yourself when you do specific behaviors? So what we
Hmm.
find then on the find it piece is there's a version of yourself that you feel trapped in, that you don't feel it's an incomplete or a disintegrated. I call it it's a self part. So this is think like
Hmm.
internal family systems. It's kind of like that. There's a part of yourself that you don't like, that there's something about it that's out of alignment with the you that you're experiencing yourself as. So we find that part. And it can be as simple as saying, like if someone's saying, I'm just so angry all the time, or I'm mad, or I can't, whatever it is that they're struggling with, I would say, tell me the first memory that you have of feeling that way. Like
Hmm.
when was that like the first thing? So I try to find sort of the genesis of it. Sometimes people don't know. I have other tricks to get them there. I can always find it. But from there, it would be, oh, well, when I was 12 or when I was 5, they'll tell you a story. And so from there, now we've got it. So now it's 5-year-old Joe.
Hmm.
It's, I'll tell you a quick story on how this works in a second. But so then from there, we've got that version. And what we do with that part of self, this is a technique or sort of the philosophy from Fritz Perls. He was a Gestalt therapy. He kind of coined or invented Gestalt therapy. Then what you do is with that part of you that you don't like, we start to get to know that part. Tell me how that part of you feels. Tell me what it thinks. Tell me how it feels. What
Hmm.
does it need? What does it want? And you just, and now you're processing. Now you're feeling it. Now you're letting that part of you finally have a chance to be seen and witnessed and loved and understood, not from rejection, not from your own internalized self-hatred, but from a place of truly wanting to get to know and love all parts of yourself. And that's the
Hmm.
friend it piece, right? So when you do that, when you give yourself permission to explore the parts of yourself that you don't like, when you really shine the light of your own consciousness on it, it's the most healing thing in the world. And we explore wants, needs, hopes, and fears. Wants, needs, hopes, and fears. So we're looking at that self part. What does it want? What does it need? What does it hope for? What does it fear? And when you uncover that, people just, I mean, it's so healing. They're able to see how beautiful. They're able to see, wait a minute, I became an alcoholic. I hate myself because I'm an alcoholic. I became an alcoholic because, and they're able to look at what happened and their own
Hmm.
trauma. It's from a place of compassion and objectivity. So that essentially is what it's about. And no, it's wild too. I actually was doing sovereign on myself before I ever even went to grad school. I just sort of had this intuitive understanding of how to do
Yep.
it.
Hmm.
Um, when I was a little girl, if I could share, am I allowed to
Hmm.
talk about a traumatic event
Yeah.
on the show?
Yeah. Whatever you
So
want to.
when I was 4 years old, I was sexually abused by a person that my family had let come into the home. And my parents were wonderful people. This was not their fault. They just did not know. How could they know? How would you think someone could be that monstrous? So this went on for several months. And I, to this day, have memories, very, very vivid, concrete memories of what was done to me, how it was done to me, the lies, the manipulation, how it was hidden. how they played my parents, just all of that. And so I eventually told my mom and dad. And I have
Mm-hmm.
visceral memories of that whole process. And there was a voice, by the way, in my head guiding me. And now I know that was the voice of my intuition, right? I now remember I can look back, full on conversation in my head, a voice saying, Heather, you have to tell. If you don't tell, it won't stop. You've got
Mm-hmm.
to tell. So I was being led and guided at a young age by, but what I believe to be, the Holy Spirit, right? My
Mm-hmm.
intuition at a very early age. But so I told my parents it stopped and I repressed those memories. I
Mm-hmm.
had no memory of what happened to me until I was like 16 or 17 years old. All of the memories came back. I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned it to my mother. She starts hysterically crying because she's like, oh my gosh, I thought you forgot about all that. So all the memories flood back. By the time I'm 21, I have a nervous breakdown. I
Mm-hmm.
was diagnosed with complex PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, and major clinical depression recurrent. I would have these like massively just depressive episodes. And this is what sparked my interest in therapy and helping others, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that I had this horrible problem. I got on meds. I started therapy for the first time and really began my healing journey, but nothing really helped me deal with those memories. And God bless my therapist, that wasn't helping either. Let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
right now. So, because when they hit, you're trapped in it. That's the thing with complex PTSD. You cannot get your mind to disengage and you're just like sitting there reliving it.
Yeah.
So, I had this thought in my head. I kept saying over and over again, I just wish that somebody would have been there for me. I just wish somebody would have I'm getting emotional when I'm saying, like, I just wish somebody would have walked in the room and stopped it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this thought one day, well, what if somebody could walk in the room? Oh, I'm gonna cry. It still gets me. You can walk in the room. I had this thought, well, Heather, what if you walked into the room, the version of you that you are today? What if you could alter that memory? You can't change what happened,
Mm-hmm.
but what you can do is be with yourself while you are remembering it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. Every time the memory would hit me, my little 22-year-old self, I would bust open the door and I'd envision myself coming in and holding her hand and saying, you don't know it yet, honey, but you grow up and you take this and you turn it into healing for thousands upon thousands of it. You don't know it yet, but you make it out of this. You don't know it yet, but you start a company and you teach people how to heal. You don't know it yet, but you are going to turn this horrible thing that happened to you into a beacon of light for so many people. And I would hold her hand and tell her this. And after several months of this, the memories went away.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to go in to find that part of me, to feel, let her experience it and to release it. I friended that part and I eventually freed her. So I that is sovereign in a nutshell. It's how do we learn how to hold these parts of ourselves and be okay, to be okay, to discover how no matter what happens to us and no matter what we've done, we are so much more than what we have done and what we have experienced. There is a sovereign soul inside of every last one of us. And I believe that the best way to live is to help people get in touch with that and to listen to that voice within, because without that, we are lost. We are truly lost. We've got, and intuition, teaching people how to tap into their intuition is obviously another part of aspect of what I do, but um that's how we love ourselves. We accept that part just the way it is, not needing to change it, but to understand it. And from that understanding, the change occurs. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, first, thank you for sharing that, 'cause that's not easy to share. Second, anyone listening, I know a lot of you probably have not had a tool to deal with this. Rewind this, listen to this, and talk to yourself, because it wasn't your fault. What happened was not your fault. How you respond is your ownership to how you will live your new life, away from the fear and guilt, but it was not your fault. No, I
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that, because that very much it's needed, because I think so many times victims blame themselves. Honestly, if
Yes.
we're talking about sexual abuse, if we're talking about physical abuse, if we're talking about anything, well, what if I did this? Or what if I did that? And in reality, especially if you're a kid, there was nothing you could do. It wasn't
Hmm.
your fault. So again, thank you for sharing that, 'cause that definitely goes deep. I think so many times people get, like I said, caught up in if they would have just done this, it wouldn't have happened to them. And in reality, sometimes bad things happen because there's bad people in the world. But there's also good people like Heather and I in the world too. So
Hmm. Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for letting me share it. I think the reason why we blame ourselves is it's easier to put the responsibility on us than it is to hold someone else accountable because often we know we're never going to get that justice. We know that that isn't going to come. So we try to put it on ourselves as a way to resolve it or mitigate it, but all it really does is just create more more shame and more blame and more trap. So, just staying trapped in it. So, um yeah, we really do have, each and every one of us do have this power within us to liberate ourselves and to help others. And to help other people do it too, just by sharing our experiences and our story. Um, so yeah, there can really be no healing or change unless it happens within.
mhm.
It really does have to come from ourselves, right? For the self-healing piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people just get confused with it. I think they if they go to a therapist, the therapist will solve their problems. In reality, I think the therapist just helps reframe it so that you can address it and fix your problems. Because if the healing doesn't, like you said, come from you, it doesn't go. But how do people tap into their intuition? So, like, I know me, I'm a little bit empathetic. I can read emotions, I can read energies. Like, I'm really attuned to that, but a lot of people I know don't. So can you help someone tap into it? And the reason I'm good at it is because I've actually started listening. When I haven't listened, it goes really bad. I'm like, oh, if my gut feels something, my wife laughs at me. I'm like, nope, we're just not doing this. It's like, and 9 times out of 10, it was right. And I'd rather err on the side. But how do you help people even begin to trust themselves? Because a lot of people may have felt it, but they don't trust their intuition.
Hmm. So there's two things to this. The first is allaying the fears around. So the kind of the biggest question that I get asked with respect to intuitive development is, how do I tell the difference between the monkey mind thoughts and a true intuitive hit? How do I tell the difference between fear and my intuition? How do I tell the difference between wishful thinking and intuition, right?
Hmm.
So those three things we sort of have to tease out because there's a lot of static in the system until we do that. So I think some of it is just getting skilled up in knowledge, increased knowledge and awareness around that. Which we can go into that in a second if you'd like me to explain kind of the difference between those three. That is very simple and easy. And once you hear it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. And then the second step is to really cultivate the ability to have inner awareness. So that's my first step. I have a 5-step intuitive development system. I teach it inside of the Sovereign method, but also it's called True Intuition. It's a framework for just intuitive development. The first step is inner awareness. The second step is notice. The third step is trust. The fourth step is to interpret. And then the fifth step is to act. So the first step is inner awareness. And I always say, if you want to make a sandwich, what room do you have to go to? The kitchen, because that's where the sandwiches are. It's where refrigerators. So if we want to listen to our intuitive voice, or and we're saying here, that's only one gateway. There's actually 7 main gateways. I call them gateways that where on how your energy system will send you intuitive information. But we have to cultivate this ability to learn to pay attention to what is going on inside of us. And by going on inside of us, I mean these 7 gateways. There's 5 major gateways. So, what am I seeing in my mind? What am I hearing? What am I just knowing? Claircognizance, right? So, this is clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance. And then what am I feeling? Clairsentience, but humans feel in 2 different ways. We feel somatically with our body, and then we feel feelings, empathy. So it's clairempathy, clairsomatic, right? Those are our 5. And then you can even do smell and taste. Some people have smell and taste. So when we go inside, we learn how to pay attention to what's coming up in those various aspects, or sort of think of them maybe like domains of our inner being. And depending on a person's energy system, and I can get into the science behind intuition, that everything that I teach is backed up by science. I can throw peer-reviewed research at you till the cows come home. So nothing I'm saying isn't supported by research and the science of it. So once you really figure out how and understand how your intuition works, it really is just a matter of learning how to pay attention inside through these gateways. And it's as simple as saying, let me just take a moment to pay attention to any images I'm seeing in my mind. So have you ever had a conversation with a person and like you'll say to them, you know what? You remind me, you're busier than Briar Rabbit. Oftentimes, the reason why we say these things is we're having images pop up in our mind, or
Hmm.
we're thinking about a scene we saw in a movie. That is a clairvoyant creative ability that we have. So it's really just about learning how to pay attention to the information that's inside your system that's already there. Research shows every human being on this earth is intuitive. Every last one of us. It is a baseline human ability, just like human beings are born with the ability to learn how to walk, talk, how to learn a language.
Yep.
We're all born with the ability to breathe. Every last one of us intuit this intuitive information. It's just that people have been taught to disregard it.
Hmm.
So intuitive development is actually, and this is how I teach it, I'm actually not teaching people how to become more intuitive. What I'm teaching people how to do is to take conscious command over a fully developed but currently unconscious ability. A
Hmm.
fully developed but currently unconscious ability. So we're learning how that system works and letting people choose to use that information that they receive intuitively to lead and guide their life. So, yeah, it's just going within. A quick and easy thing you can do is pay attention to the next time you're having a conversation with someone, start paying attention to the inner voice, like your own inner dialogue.
Hmm.
Pay attention to music lyrics that pop into your head, any little images that pop into your head, right?
Yep.
Those things, or just general impressions or feelings that you feel when you're talking to someone. All of that is rich, intuitive information that we just sort of go, whatever. We think it doesn't matter, but in reality, it's like the most amazing data that we could be
Hmm.
using to lead and guide our life. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you said music, The Ordinary from Alex Warren popped in my head. Just because, like, I like that song, but no, I'm now that I've gotten older, I listen to it a lot more. Like, even
Mhm.
if I just have the feeling, get off the highway and take the different route home, I just know now I just do that. Didn't see anything, nothing seemed different, but sometimes I just have learned, or if I get around the right people, I just feel really relaxed. Like with you, I connect, I feel great. There's some people I get around, I'm like, I can't be by you. And it's not like they're doing anything. It's just it's not it just doesn't feel right. And I've learned now to, I guess, guard myself, not in a bad way,
Mhm.
but protect my peace. Because as I got older, I don't want the noise. I don't want the stress. I know it's funny. I'm in sales. I'm in engaging with people all the time. I'm an introvert. Like tonight,
Yeah.
I'll go for a walk. I'll have to read. I'll have to just sit in silence. I have to. And before I didn't know, everyone said I was an extrovert. So I said I'm an extrovert. And it would just drain me. And I think
Mhm.
it's listening to your body and listening to what you know. And then the other thing that I've had to learn to do, and this is because I've honed it in, but before I would take other people's energies or feelings or emotions on as they were my own. I'm like, wait. I'm not angry. They're angry. Why am I getting upset about this now? Now I'm not perfect. There's still times I blow up. There's still times, but I'm like, it's just learning that process. I think like any tool, like everyone has muscles, but if you don't lift weights, you're not going to develop your muscles. Everyone
Right.
has a mind. If you don't read, you're not going to develop your mind or however you
Mhm.
learn. I mean, you can learn oratorio as well, but I think for a while people got afraid of it because they didn't want to be too woo, but it's not really woo. It's like breathing. It's the same thing. At least that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, it's not woo at all, actually. And I think I tell my students all the time, you're going to become trilingual. You're going to
Hmm.
speak psychology speak, right? You're going to speak the scientific, and you're going to speak the everyday language, maybe even four, right? Even the religious. So I think of this as being just an aspect of what it is to be human. And
Hmm.
yeah, woo woo people. are into this. Certainly they're interested in it, but so are scientists. They just use a different language. So are people who consider themselves to be very, very spiritual. So for me, understanding the science behind it was very important because I feel like, well, first of all, as an educator and a teacher, I owe that to my students. But we really don't need to. What's cool about intuition now is we really don't have to wonder about it or feel like it's woo woo. It's not woo woo at all. Like I can explain the scientific, like the psychophysiological processes through and by which we send and receive energetic information. Like we understand that now. The fact that we have a sixth sense is not a metaphor anymore. It's actually it's a pathway, a neural pathway between your heart, your brain, and your stomach.
Hmm.
So it comes in through the heart, 2, 3 seconds later, it hits your brain, goes through hind limbic system, hits the neocortex, and then it ends, its termination point is in the gut. So it is they can actually track it. So we do indeed have a sixth sense. The organ is this neurological pathway
Hmm.
that science can now explain and understand. And it's not something you should believe in. I mean, I guess you could say you believe in it, but that's also like saying I believe that the sun rises in the east. Like I don't believe that it rises in the
It
east. Like
just
it's a
does. Yeah.
fact.
It just does. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive. I mean, and be talking about intuition, like the conversation around what intuition is, I think is really fascinating because that then we start getting into the nuances of it. If I grew up in a very conservative fundamentalist Christian, kind of a fundamentalist Christian home, and I was taught that it's demons. I
Hmm.
was taught that, oh, if you tap in or you try to do any of that woo-woo stuff, you're talking to demons. I'm like, I'm not talking to demons. I now understand that I have a very well calibrated energy system that knows how to read information out of the quantum field. And when I pay attention in a particular way, I am able to access a person's field with their permission and pull forward useful and helpful information that helps them heal.
Hmm.
That's it. That's all. It's not the devil.
I love
So,
that because I grew up in it was more on the woo side of Christianity, the Pentecostals, they'd run
oh,
around, they do all the
wow.
different, I was on that side. And then I became, actually, well, we won't go down there, but it was on that side. I saw all the craziness there. Then I went to a church that's all completely against that and just been back and forth. It was just like, no, some of this is just who you are. There's different
Mhm.
energies, there's different stuff. It doesn't mean that it's the devil because it doesn't fit into whatever box you had that you're comfortable with. I
Right.
think too many times people get caught up in if it doesn't go exactly how my person said. Well, your person is saying it through their rose-colored glasses, for lack of a better term, because all the stuff that they've dealt with in life is still hitting them with it. So now, when you said that, I'm like, it's kind of the same coin because they would be really wooed this way, but you had to do it this way, and it only could be God doing it. But if you did something else, then you're wrong, and it's demons again. It's like, no, it's not demons. It's just learning who you are and connecting with people. So I appreciate that you brought that up.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean it's a fascinating time, and I think a lot of us are scared. Well, I've been doing this for 11 years, the intuition piece, right? As an intuitive coach, and then now teaching and training, and more people are open to it. I cannot believe how the world is opening up. It
Mhm.
is absolutely incredible. And I get it that people might be scared to start listening to that voice and to start applying that to their life. It's challenging to start living in accordance with the dictates of your own soul.
Mhm.
It requires a lot of responsibility, doesn't it? Because while we're following the rules that someone else created for us, if it goes sideways, well, then it's not my fault now, is it?
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
So, it requires a lot of maturity and a true willingness to be courageous and decide what we think. But you know what else I'll say to that? The world is truly in a state of disintegration and chaos. And I think one of the things that we have come to understand or notice here is that following someone else's path or the rules they've set out for you is one of the surest ways to hell too.
Hmm.
You know,
100%.
all of the, yeah, like all of these institutions, the things we thought we could trust, the people, the system, all of this stuff, everything is being exposed. And I think it's to, in some ways, maybe the spiritual purpose behind it, who knows? But I kind of think, well, good. This is going to give everybody an opportunity to stand on their own feet, to become an adult, like a spiritual adult with this, and start saying, okay, maybe I need to ask myself what I believe. And
Hmm.
maybe I need to start, doing it, quote, for lack of a better way to say it, doing it my way.
Hmm.
But I really do believe that that is one of the greatest crimes that a person can commit, is to live an authentic life, because the world does not the world very much does not want people to
Hmm.
start living in accordance with their own truth, because you become someone that can't be controlled.
Right. Yep.
And I think we all know this, which is why waking up is so scary. It's kind of like a Morpheus to Neo in the
Hmm.
Matrix. He's like, you have to understand, these people are going to
Yes.
fight us. They don't want to wake up. It's terrifying.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also really exhilarating too when you start living this way. And another thing I think that happens is you start to realize that everybody is just doing the best they can
Hmm.
with what they've got. And we're
Yep.
all out here doing the best we can. It, to me, it invites a lot of compassion instead of judgment. Judgment, anger, your side, no, my side, no, yeah. It really does
Yeah.
away with a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. My whole thing is waking up to a life you love living. No rules. And when I put the no rules in, it's because I had rules forever. I had rules. Well, I had to be the right Christian guy. I had to be the right human. I had to be the right son. I had to be the right husband. I had to be
Yeah.
right this. And I'm like, this is exhausting. And then I'm 48 now. Probably when I was about a little bit after 40, I started going, well, what do I really want? And that was even scary because forever I had done what everyone else wanted. And then now it's like, well, wait, now I want to do what I want. But like you said, and I love this, but it's still scary is when you start stepping into who you are and what you do, now you're accountable, but now you're also able to breathe and do things that are like, holy crap. Like I ran a half marathon last year. I thought I was going to walk it. I started running. I'm like, it feels good. Just kept running. And I just listened to my body. I ran probably half of the half marathon. I didn't run the whole thing, but I ran a lot more than I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to just walk it fast. And it's even those little decisions making that you have to get to the place where one, awareness, two, awakening, three, being willing to be uncomfortable. Because when you sit with yourself,
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. It's hard at times. And then four, giving other people grace because they still see you in the old light, even though that's not you
Mm.
anymore. That's the other one that I think was the hardest for me because, again, I have some people pleaser tendencies. I have that I want people to like me, but in reality, if I'm not truly authentic, then they're not liking me. They're liking the version or the mask I'm
Right.
showing them. So no, I love that. As we land the plane, because I do have another call coming up in a few moments, I didn't pay attention because we've just been flying through, and I love this. Where can people find you?
Instagram at Heather Alice Shea. Shea is spelled Shea like the butter. And then also my website, just heatheralice.com. I have tons of free resources, all kinds of cool stuff that people can use to get started with either the sovereign method or developing their intuition. So thank you so much, Joe, for having me on. This has been lovely.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to have you come back because I think we just barely scratched the surface, and then I just won't have another call right behind because then that way we have time to flow into it
Great.
more. Do you have
Wonderful.
any last words, anything else that you want to leave our listeners with before we let them go?
Yes, be unapologetically yourself and let the chips fall where they may. And any change that happens while you're expressing your authentic self is change that needs to be made. And you can't lose anything that isn't meant for you. So just get out there and be bold.
I love that. I'm not even going to try and summarize that. Rewind this, listen to that again. It was amazing. Share this episode, and we will talk soon.